What's up, everyone? How's your day going? It's Mr. Cody, or the tall guy with the hair again. So if you haven't already, please go back and watch the first two parts of the Intro to Drawing series, which I do use pens to draw. And if you haven't seen that video yet, yes, we are drawing with pens to begin our drawing adventure. And over time, you'll start to see the method behind my madness. So today we're, going to continue this drawing adventure using a pen. So this time I incorporated two colors. I have black and I have blue, and I'll show you why I have this in a second. So what I always like to teach people when they do come to me about, like, I've never drawn before, I don't know how to start, and a whole other list of things. The first thing I like to tell them is try to break the things down into simple shapes first. So that's what we're going to do today. I actually had an art teacher of my own who showed me this technique to use it in a different sense, but I thought it was like a great way of, teaching how to break down anything you wanted to draw. So today I'm going to run through about 3 different examples of how we can break down something that could seem a little bit complex into simple shapes, and then build from there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shuffle over this book. I'm going to put this drawing here. So as you can see, I have a picture of a tree. So first thing I want to get out the way is why I have 2 different color pens, one being blue and one being black. The reason I do that is, I know a lot of us, until you get used to like I was showing earlier, drawing lightly, before we get used to drawing lightly before we can draw harder, that technique, you can also utilize the different colors. So for example, as you can see the blue, there we go. As you can see the blue, if I draw lightly with the blue, that is lighter than the black's light. So you can utilize the both of them to kind of help with value. So start with this to maybe sketch, and then you can build on that with the black. So I'll show you that in theory. So what I'm gonna do first is start off with the blue pen. If you look at this tree really quick, I want you to pause the video and I want you to think about the simplest shape that you can see this tree being. Okay. So for me, if I want to break this tree down into a simple shape, I think the top of this tree kind of looks like a funky square. So just with that in mind, I'm going to draw a really loose, funky square. Remember the last techniques? I said draw lightly. Don't worry too much about how perfect it looks. Try to create long pen strokes. Like I said, I'm not worrying about all the other stuff on the outside just yet. I just want the simplest of the shapes. And then as you can see, you kind of barely see how I drew on that, but when I build the values up, it should show a little bit better. So I drew like a simple square, and then the actual tree trunk itself, it's kind of like a little rectangular shape. Almost like a little wide rectangular shape. All right, so now what you could do from here, if you want to just leave it solely simple shapes, I can now take my black pen and I can now outline the blue pen I just drew. Like I said, I'm just going to keep them all simple shapes for now. And since it's a tree, the lines don't have to be absolutely perfect, but as you can see, this looks like a very simple version of that. So now if I really wanted to get super detailed, like I said, I will speed this part up, but I can use the same technique and get a little bit more detailed with my approach. And as you can see, using the same techniques, trying to get a little bit more meticulous with the shapes, or for lack of a better word, get a little bit more detailed with my approach. As you can see, I'm still being loose. Not worrying about putting too many details first, but I am getting really sloppy with it, right? Still trying to keep the general shapes of everything. Alright, boom. And then, alright. Now if I come back with my pen here, start to add up some line weight. Alright. So as you can see, by throwing in similar practices, except I've left this a little bit more, you know, I guess a little bit more, less of a shape and more of just the general idea of what I wanted to do. As you can see, instead of going more for a shapely approach, I kind of just roughly guesstimated the tree's silhouette as I approached sketching it in. And as you also see, I used some of the hatching techniques, and like I was saying in the last video, you can break some rules, so I kind of scribbled the shadow, but just to show you how this can be converted into that, pretty simple. But for now, we're only going to focus on this approach, just keeping them really simple. So now that we have that tree, let's go to a different tree. So now this tree, as you can see, it's a little bit more oval. It's almost shaped kind of like the lamp from the genie minus the top part. So what I'm gonna do, like I said, general shape. Even if it's not an actual shape that you think already exists, if it's not a perfect square like the last one, just try to get like the general shape. I think this is kind of shaped, like I said, the genie's lamp. So I'm gonna draw just as that, kind of just the genie lamp shape. And then the tree trunk kind of falls right here. And the beautiful part about using something as light as like a pen, or the lighter color of the pen, is you have the room to just keep drawing around, making the outside really loose and sloppy, as you can see. So now when I go back with the darker color, I can just kind of trace everything in. And then my tree trunk. So you see that's just the general shape of that. Let's see, not overcomplicating it, just keeping it really simple. And then now in practice, if I wanted to get a little bit more complex with it, same exact approach as this one. You can even start, a lot of times you can start sketching it out just like how you do the simple shape, kind of like this. All right, starting off with the simple shapes first. Now I'm starting to see like a bird head. So start with simple shapes here, and then sometimes I sketch in shadows as shapes. Especially for things like trees, is if you're taking more of a simplistic approach, I kind of shape in shadows. And shadows is really just the dark area of a picture. And for trees, you don't have to worry about being too precise when drawing certain shapes. This is just, you know, trying to keep it simple. Whichever way is more comfortable for you, you go with that approach. I'm going to draw my tree trunk here. Boom, boom. So now, so it depends again. And I'm going to do the same thing. Trying to keep them nice, loose lines. Boom. Drawing the tree trunk here. And then start to put some hashes, maybe a couple cross hatchings to create like the darker values on the inside of the tree. As you can see, I'm being really loose with it, not worrying too much about how perfect it is, because like I said, we're only sketching for now. You can use these techniques for any refined drawings, as I've showed you in the last video as well. One of the last videos we did probably number 2, don't remember which one. So now, you see that's also a tree similar to that one. So these two trees are similar, just like those two trees are similar. The amount of detail, as you can see, kind of varies depending on your approach. And I can also, you know, make some of these darker, but I just want to keep it simple for now. So with that, what I'm going to do now is we're going to move on from trees to, let's see, something that's maybe a little bit more complicated, like, let's say an elephant. All right. So, like I said, we're going to try something like an elephant. And you're probably thinking, oh no, an elephant, that's so hard. It's not. And I'll show you. So I'm going to turn this, because remember, no paper wasting. That's not what we do here. So just like the tree exercises we've done, I'm gonna draw it very simple first, and then get more complex in the other drawings. So when you go to draw in something more complex or sketch it out in just the general shapes first, it's like something like elephant, I'll take more of this approach because it's not going to be as symmetrical as like a square. It's going to be more odd shaped like this. So here's where drawing lightly is really helpful, because you get to chip away at the image as you're going forward. This is also showing you how to draw from life. You kind of create the general shapes first and then chip away at it as you build on your as you build on your subject. So what I would start with first is I like to start with the body, because I feel like that's an easier thing to kind of get the general shape of. And if you want to, depending on if it's on like a phone or something like that, you can even like make little practice sketches from it. Or if it's something in real life, you can even like hover your drawing tool around it. A multitude of different things you can do to help this approach. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the body. And another thing I like to do is get really angled or angular with my drawing. They don't always have to be like soft. I'm going to draw this darker. They don't always have to be soft lines at first. You can even create more angular lines if that's easier for you to duplicate. As long as you're remembering to draw lightly when you do this, when you get back to your darker pen, that's when you can add more, or you can add the actual solid lines to help it be a little bit more refined. So I'm going to take the angular approach just to show you how it's done. So first, as you can see, there's kind of like a nice diagonal line for the back of your elephant. So I'm just going to draw that nice angle line. And it's like another smaller kind of cut across here, right? I'm not trying to get too detailed just yet. And it's like a little dip. You can draw the dip in regular if it's more comfortable for you. And then have it fall down. As you can see, I'm just trying to follow this shape. I can ignore the leg and just kind of cut across to this shape and see that it's kind of a diagonal line connecting from his tail to the front of his leg. So I don't even have to worry about the legs, kind of like a nice diagonal line. This is where, being mindful of the shapes that you see. Just drawing them in there. You got some loose skin here, right? It's kind of cutting across. Then it comes back up, ignoring that leg as well. And it's all going to kind of connect to like about this part where his head is. All right. So this is the general shape of my elephant's body. Next, you can go in and draw the simple things first, or you can save the simple things for last. What I like to do sometimes, I like to save the simple things for last, because it's like one of those rewarding parts. So it's like if the hard part was frustrating, I know what I have after simple. So start with the head, same approach. There's a nice little diagonal line cutting across the front of the head. And don't be afraid to take your time and mess up and do all that great stuff, because drawing things like elephants isn't that easy, but I believe in you. So don't get discouraged, just keep trying. And you can also warm up some more simple things, like start with trees, and then you can go to something like butterflies, and then you can draw anything from like a pencil to a car. You can do all of this, but I'm going to show you the complicated thing first, because I want to challenge you. And yeah, why not? So you can see I'm just breaking down the shapes exactly as I see them, and try to draw what you see and not what you think you see, because I find I sometimes do that as well. All right, and I'm going to draw the line for the ear right here. And you may start to see that some of the lines kind of blend together, and that's a-okay. Because like I said, when we come back with that darker pen color, all of that's going to kind of work itself out. Got the draw line, sketch that in there. I'm keeping it really boxy. The elephant's trunk, you can get really creative with that. It doesn't have to be exact. Get really creative. I made mine boxy, but if you feel more comfortable, you can make it a little bit rounder. And then now that I have all this body stuff drawn in, I can come back in now and draw the legs, because now I know the hard part is done. Let me draw my legs in there. I don't have all the room to put my legs in the way I want them to, but I'm going to draw them as best as I can. Put in the elephant. Add in some of his body here. You have some loose skin here, a little bit longer. And also drawing lightly allows you to adjust anything that may need to be fixed. So take your time to do that as well. Adjust as you go. It's okay, this is only the sketching stage. The more you sketch, the more refined your lines will become. Like I said, also don't be afraid to try to draw things in one motion. I'm not going to worry about all the details of the eyes or anything like that just yet. I just want the body shape. All right. So now, as you see, you probably notice after drawing this, there's a whole bunch of pen lines that don't really quite make sense just yet. But here's where coming in with the darker color is going to help tie all this up. So now the first things I like to do is trace in the lines that kind of overlap other things. So what I mean by that is the ears kind of overlap the body. So if I trace that in with my pen here, the darker color, this will automatically lift the head off the body. You can also add the lines to wherever there's a shadow. So right here on the inside of the ear, there's like a nice dip or a shadow. And then you can also play around with line weight. That's basically just light and dark pressure of your pen. So dark would be more line weight and light would be less. And you can even create like a gradient line by starting dark and then lightly coming off of the pen and getting lighter. And as you can see, it's a nice tapered line. So you can play around with that when you're using shadows as well. So I'm just doing the shadows, doing the dark areas first. Now is where you can start to round off some of your edges. So instead of it being boxy, you can now start to round off some of your edges, make them look cool. All right, trying to do things in like one motion as best as I can. But even I'm not that great at that, and that's okay. This is why we all have to practice. I'm not worrying about everything being, like I said, perfect. We just want to get our idea across to be able to draw whatever we think we want to draw. Also, I know there's a couple of my students that always ask, like, how can I draw things from my head? And the key to that is just drawing that thing a lot, so you have a really good understanding of what you're drawing. So here, one thing I notice is this leg is connected to the body. You may have a segment here like I do, but we're going to ignore that part. And we're just going to draw in the front part of the leg just to connect it to the body. You see, it's like where the skin comes in. And there's like a nice little shadow from here, from like the leg that reaches into the stomach. You can add that as well if you like. Like I said, I'm going to mess around with some of the line weight for that. The back, stabbed through my paper. The back leg. All right, and then it's under his body. So now, as you can see, same exact approach as the tree, just a little bit more shapes, but it breaks down the same exact way. So like I said, if you want to draw something like a elephant, do the same thing. Look up a picture, break it down into simple shapes exactly like I've shown you. You don't even have to create like an entire body like I did. You can start with the head, start with the I guess straight on look, like looking at the elephant straight on, and then you can go its profile, and then you can build up from there. You don't have to start off with the whole elephant like I did, but I find it's good practice to just kind of try the things that you're a little bit more uncomfortable with first. So now if I wanted to go back and add the shadows, just like before, I can create my hatch lines. All right. Let's create the hatch lines. Just try stuff. It's okay. I know you may think, some of you may think that you can't do it, but if I'm showing it to you, that means I think you can. Like I said, it's okay to not be good the first time you do it, because I'm still not that good after doing it a lot. So it's just about practice. And let's face it, the earlier you start practicing, the quicker you can be better than me. And I look forward to you being better than me, so then you can teach me stuff. And then we can talk about art and how great you are and all that fancy stuff. So I'm just, keeping it simple. Just scribbling in some of these lines. I know drawing's probably in shadow, but let me move that up for you. All right. I'm scribbling in these things. Alright, just not getting too crazy about it. Sketching the tail. Add some of these shadows here to the body. Yada, 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 yada. Alright, boom. Elephant butt. Alright, that's a shadow. So now, as you can see, I took the same approach. Move that out the way. I took the same approach I did. Boom. I took the same approach I did with the tree. Started with simple shapes first, and then I took the idea of the simple shapes, made it a little bit more complex, just to help create the image of a tree. And as you can see, this is not a super detailed tree, but I'm pretty confident that you know it was a tree. And I did the same thing for something a little bit more difficult, like an elephant. But difficult is only just you haven't done it enough. It's just lack of experience. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means you don't have that much experience. And I think that's the best part about being an artist, because after you try things 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10 times, you'll be able to do this with your eyes closed. Maybe with your eyes closed, because I drew my eyes closed once. Didn't go that well. But this is why you get to use your eyes, and that's fine. So with these lessons, like I said, you don't have to jump as quick as I did through here. This, just to show you a video of how getting the fundamentals of breaking things down to simple shapes can get you somewhere like drawing an elephant. So yeah, get out there, try it. Hope you learned something from this. Like I said, accompany this with the other lessons of like line weight and warm-ups. Don't forget your warm-ups. And just draw as many things as you can. Get outside in your backyard. Try to draw a tree like I did. Or if you see like a bird, try to draw that, simple shapes. Just try these things, and I'm pretty sure you'll be great. And don't be afraid to tag us, the Lindsay School of the Arts, so we can see the progress you're making. And I hope you have a good day. Happy drawing, and be great in hands and frilly stuff. See you later.